any questions or comments, please use the chat located in the Zoom platform. Questions will be answered by our speakers in the Q&A session. To avoid background noises that may distract the presentation, please keep your microphone muted. The duration of this session is 60 minutes and is being recorded. At the end of the session, we will share a link to a survey. Please answer it and let us know how we did it. I would like to start this presentation by mentioning the host of this event. Hispanotech is a non-for-profit organization whose mission is to help Hispanic professionals integrate and advance their careers here in Canada. And how they do it? Through skills development seminars, volunteering opportunities, networking events, mentoring programs, and so on. Please feel free to follow us on social media and our website. Now, I'm going to introduce our webinar topic. We all understand the importance of analytics and artificial intelligence in these challenging times, our day-to-day lives and how they are transforming the world and the job marketplace. In this context, this webinar pretends to inform and discuss the following topics. What are analytics and artificial intelligence? Models, tools, and techniques using analytics and AI. We'll talk about some labor market statistics. What are the most popular careers in analytics? To finally open to a Q&A session that will be answered by our panelists. To better understand why business analytics has become very popular in the corporate world and why you should consider specializing in the field, let's first define some terms. What is artificial intelligence? So it is the branch of computer science that emphasizes intelligent machines development that think and work like humans. In other words, AI is the computer's ability to make decisions or to predict. An example of a popular AI solution that we are using today is Siri, the personal assistant offered by Apple that uses speech recognition and machine learning technology. On the other hand, we have analytics that uses data and math to answer questions, discover relationships, predict and know outcomes, and automate decisions. This diverse computer science file is used to find meaningful data patterns. As we can see from the graph, AI and analytics are not a new concept. The technology has been with us for a long time, but it's becoming essential these days due to more data is generated than before. Better and cheaper storage options are available to low cost, and more algorithms make it easier to apply analytics in every industry. Thank you. Now, let's move to the models, tools, and techniques using analytics. There are three types of analytics. The first one is descriptive or diagnostic, which describes what happened in the past, mainly focusing on statistics, visualization, reporting, BI, and data modeling. This type of analytics is employed heavily across all industries. Then we have predictive analytics that basically anticipates what will happen in the future, and it's employed by a data-driven organizations as a key source of insights. More advanced analytics is prescriptive, a type that recommends what to do to achieve your goals. This is employed by leading data and internet companies mostly. Both predictive and prescriptive analytics focus on AI and machine learning models. On the other side, the 6 AI disciplines are knowledge reasoning that represents information in the form of a computer that can use to solve problems. Natural language processing, which is getting a computer to understand human language. Machine learning, instead, uses data to train models. Robotics, as its name says, focus on designing and constructing the hardware and the software of the robots. Computer vision and planning are the other ones. Now, let's move to the next point, which covers some interesting facts about Hispanic professionals in the field of data analysis. According to Job Bank Canada, Hispanic background professionals in data analysis and its related disciplines represents only 1.7% of the total data analysis labor market in Canada during 2018. Moreover, The most popular race and ethnicity that are enrolled in analytics courses or programs in USA are predominantly white students. By looking specifically at Hispanic, Latino, and African American students, has by far the lowest total percentage of students. Please note that the chart is taking students in the USA. In case of Canada, the same indicator will be much lower due to the demographic differences. Overall, the occupational group of data analytics is expected to face a labor shortage conditions over 2019 to 2028 here in Canada. Now that we have established why business analytics is becoming essential for companies, we would like to respond what makes it the right career choice on a personal level. And the answers are, the supply is still lower than the demand. Business analytics can be applied to any industry and it's easy to switch from other careers. Therefore, the most popular careers in business analytics are data analysis, business insights and analytics, big data specialist, data science, and so on. Well, I have covered all the points that I needed to present today, and I'm very excited to present to our panelists. Each of them has a relevant and useful analytics and EI experience in different industries. So you will get tons of value from listening to them. I will let each speaker introduce themselves, and I would like to start with Natalie.
Hi, everyone. Yes, hi, everyone. So my name is Natalie Rico. I'm very excited to be here, first of all. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. So I did electrical engineering in university, and after that, I worked as an engineer 1 year. Then I did 8 years of as a business owner. I have my own business in Venezuela. I had a furniture manufacturing business. And 4 years ago, I moved to Canada. I did my MBA with a specialization in business analytics. And now I'm working at Scotiabank as a physical footprint optimization manager.
Thank you, Natalie. Now, please, Joseph.
Good evening. I'm Joseph Villamizar. I'm in charge of the international transaction banking for Scotiabank. What that means is we're in charge of all the digital channels, payments, for big corporations across our footprint. Before that, I was in charge of the FinTech Partnership Program when I had the opportunity to scout for startups and bring them to the banks and run a series of POCs, most of them AI and analytics related, where we're looking in new ways, new innovative ways to improve our value proposition. And also holds a master's of management in artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Joseph. Now, Jimena, please, your turn.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Jimena Baripati. I'm a BI business intelligence developer and consultant at Adastra. My background is in chemical engineering. I studied my degree in Argentina. Before coming to Canada, I work in the nuclear field in a chemical lab. So I had experience working with statistics, and then I work in oil and gas. And after that, when I moved to Canada, I decided to change my career. So my experience here in Canada, it's most basically in data analytics and BI. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimena. Now, Benjamin,
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Benjamin Castro. So a bit about me. I'm Peruvian. My undergraduate study was in computer science. After working some years in IT back in Peru, I did an MBA at UCLA in Los Angeles. Then I joined McKinsey in Sao Paulo, the Brazilian office. I worked there for around 4 years and then moved back to Peru. In Peru, I joined Peru's largest retail bank, which is called BCP, Banco de Crédito. I had 2 roles. The first one was in analytics. That was my introduction to this world, and then in product management. And around 4 years ago, I moved to Canada, and now I'm working in analytics for Scotiabank.
Thank you, Benjamin. Now, Janet, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeanette, I am from Chile, and I have been here in Canada for about 7 years now. My background is in network administration, but I also have a data science certification from UFT. Most of my career has actually been here in Canada, and it's been on the digital and media space. I'm currently a strategic data analyst at IPG Media Brands, where mostly what I do is create data integrations at scale and develop dashboards that allow the marketing teams to make data-driven decisions that ultimately help our clients succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Now, Bernie, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bernie. Even though it says Bernardo, I go by Bernie. And yeah, moving to Canada 10 years ago, originally from Argentina. My background is in software engineering. I did computer science back in Buenos Aires. And when I moved here, my first move here was basically into consulting, right? Software engineering consulting first. And then through customer relationship management via a course that I did back in Buenos Aires, I started like understanding like the value of analytics and how we can translate data into business value. So that's basically what opened the door for me. Then I started doing more roles that are related to that, data analytics, advanced analytics. I currently work at Slalom, which is a consulting organization, and I work with the Slalom Build engineering arm. And I lead a team of consultants that basically deliver this kind of projects for companies across Canada and the US.
Thank you. Diana, would you like to take it over?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. You can unshare now. Perfect. Yeah, we are extremely excited to start this section, which will be the panel. But let me start with a personal story that I want to share with you. As I've been transitioning into data analytics and data science for the past years, and I was doing my master's in AI, I noticed that out of 100 students, we were only 3 or 4 people with a Hispanic background in the program. And I was the only female, which made it even a bit more sad, I would say. So like the point here is that, or the question was, why there's such a low representation in the Hispanic community in this field? And that's how we actually came up with this initiative. So for this panel, we actually bringing you a group of professionals doing fantastic things in the field of analytics, data science, and AI. So as you like have listened to them, they're Natalie, Janet, Jimena, Bernardo, Benjamin, and Joseph. And the purpose of this panel is to walk you through the different stages of their career journeys and encourage you to consider this field. So in order to do this, we will go through some questions that we have prepared for them. And for the panelists, just try to answer probably in 1 minute or 1.5 minutes. And then after this, we have 5 to 10 minutes for Q&A. So for the audience, please feel free to write down your questions in the chat below. So yeah, let's get started. We already have an introduction, so let's just start with the motivation. So what have motivated you to pursue the field of analytics, machine learning, and AI? So I'm just going to start with, let's go with Jeanette. Yeah, go ahead, Jeanette.
Thank you. I actually ended up in the field of analytics by chance. But after I got into my first data analyst role, I started to realize quickly that really data is power. And I say that because if you're able to extract meaningful insights from data, or if you're able to discover untapped opportunities, that can really have a very positive impact on business. So on top of that, there's really a chance to work on really creative and very challenging projects as well. So I think that was the motivation for me to continue to stay in the field.
Perfect, thank you. What about Joseph? What do you think?
Okay, in my case, in my previous role, when I was doing these partnerships with fintechs, what I noticed was that a lot of them were trying to solve this problem that we call in Latin America the thin file. The thin file is trying to adjudicate a loan for people that doesn't have like a a credit background or a credit history. So what motivated me was really like this was a real problem, and they were using all type of data sources to try to predict behavior on these potential customers. So really predicting human behavior was what really triggered this like curiosity to go further and trying to understand, okay, there are multiple ways because there is a lot of data that we could use and try to solve this particular one and many other problems in this field.
Perfect. Interesting. Thank you. Jimena, your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Well, in my case, I studied chemical engineering, so the traditional path, it's more like an oil and gas career. I work in oil and gas and quickly realized that there weren't so many opportunities for oil and gas careers. You have to be in the place that oil and gas happened. And also you are you're always following the price of the oil. So in my case, I remember I started thinking, okay, I need to change career. So I did some reflections to understand what I really liked about being an engineer. And I realized that I always been in the analytics things. I'm an analytics person, so I was working in reporting, trying to find data in oil and gas. And before that, I was working with the statistics also. So I remember I decided to say, okay, I'm going to study data science. So I'm going to study data. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but that was the plan. So when I moved here to Canada, I just started learning data. I didn't try to keep going with the same path, with the same chemistry or chemical related career. I decided to totally pivot my career and started studying something new. And also I found that traditional careers in engineering are kind of boring. So I wanted something more I don't know. I wanted to learn something new. That was another reason.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes total sense. Benjamin, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, sure. Actually, pretty similar. I ended by chance at the beginning. I was told, okay, now you're going to analytics and one previous role back in the bank in Peru. But then when I came to Canada, I pursued going back to analytics. And the main reason is that I really like the vision of analytics, making decisions based on evidence, which is kind of the definition of analytics I like. For me means, okay, let's take all this information, all these insights, all these tools, and how we can use these to change something, to create something new, to change an industry, a business, an organization, whatever you want. So I have seen that works, and for me, it's something really, really exciting.
Perfect. And Bernie, what are your thoughts on this? How do you end up in the
I think I blew my thunder a little bit in the introduction, but yeah, for me it was a little bit different. I come from software engineering, right? So I think one of the things that I had when I was back in Buenos Aires, I had my own tiny consulting firm where we're basically selling a CRM, a customer relationship management system, right? And one of the things that I did back then is I taken a course back at a university, a very small course about customer relationship management. And was with a professor there that basically worked in one of the major projects for something similar to what Air Miles is here in Canada. So something related to, marketing and customer marketing, but cross companies, right? So he started explaining CRM from that perspective. So if you collect all this data from this customer, then you also get in this data from the sales, from, Air Miles, from seller companies and car companies and, restaurants and whatnot, you can all mix it up and just derive value. And these companies are basically sharing the data among themselves. That blew my mind. And I was like, oh my God, there's so much more value here than just, presenting the system, installing a system and all that, right? So that basically opened the door for me on seeing the value of data. And then on the other hand, I had my IT knowledge. So I started applying that with my my background in IT, which was mostly like a Microsoft consultant, Microsoft technology. So I started working on that area on SQL Server, on something that 10 years ago was called data mining. So it's the exact same thing, but in a different name, you know, like things in technology take different names and turns over time. So I started with that. And then when I moved here into Canada, I started working more into what's business intelligence, also under the umbrella of business intelligence and with SQL Server. And that basically led the path for everything that came after.
Interesting. So one of the things that we can observe here is that like some people, some professionals might come to this area by chance. So for example, like Janet has been mentioning, other people are coming from other backgrounds, engineering, software development, coming from different industries as well. For example, the banking sector, consulting, as Bernie has mentioned. And so those are the kinds of things that you might want to consider by the time you are seeing this interesting field. But also there are parts that we have gone through, certain challenges that are important to mention and to consider. So I would like to start with you, Natalie. Through your career, especially in the area of analytics and AI or like machine learning, were there any challenges that you have experienced in the process into getting into this specific field? And it could be anything. It could be because of language, it could be education, culture, even career backgrounds, anything that you might want to share with the audience.
For sure, Diana. So for me, there was one thing I didn't expect, not coming from here, which was that networking was key. I thought that was a Latin American thing, which is not. And the second one, it's about my background, even though I was technical. When you're a business owner, you are a generic person. So you have to learn about anything. So I had a lot of certificate, but because I was thirsty of knowledge, but I realized that this is a market of specialized people. So that was like, you know, when I realized that, I said, oh my God, I need to do something here strategic. So I tried to build, like, it took me some months to build like a solid story. So I would say that this is something people have to be aware of. You could overcome it, you know, like that's going to be fine. But at the beginning, for sure, if it's your first work that you have here, I need to be a generic person. It's not recommended.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would like to ask Joseph the same question. Any challenges that you might want to share with us?
Well, for me, I came to Canada with the bank. So the benefit, of course, of that is that you land with a job, you know, secure. That's a huge difference. But in my case, of course, the cultural change was tough, you know, in the way we communicate, and the accent I have a strong accent. So and moving through that unconscious bias from the other people is not always easy. You need to be very secure about yourself and your knowledge. And I knew my stuff. I was been a product owner for more than 10 years when I arrived here. When you know your background, you have a strong experience, you can move through all those and kind of present your ideas in a way and understand your audience to achieve your ultimate goals, basically.
Yes, as Bernie, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hear you on that one, Joseph. I heard also from some of our friends that a conscious bias around the accent, something that also I felt like I battled myself to, and it just happens, right? Like you have to deal with that, just keep pushing, keep going at it, and at some point people start realizing, hey, no, like it's this person's more than just the accent, right? So that I think that's important. Also, I feel like for myself was I think not having experience in the field, similar what sometimes you hear about the Canadian experience, but this is like the data analytics experience is something that I've seen in the industry is like, oh, but you don't have much experience on this, right? So it's something also to overcome. And sometimes professional programs or, you know, education help you bridge that gap, but you also have to be very smart about which program you choose and what's the value that this program gives you. There's certain things that you will learn about data or data and analytics that are more valuable than others. Technical knowledge comes and goes, and, you know, Python today, whatever, Java, Scala, whatever that technology in vogue it's right now. But there's certain key things about what's the business value and how to understand business value of analytics that are way much more valuable than any other like technical knowledge you can gather anywhere else. So I think those things are key. If you can present yourself with that and explain those things, that gives you an advantage.
That's a great insight. Is there anything to add to this specific question, either coming from Jeanette, Jimena, sorry, or Benjamin, that would like to share?
Yes, in my case, for example, I agree with almost all the things that everyone mentioned, but for example, in my case, is that my background, it's chemical engineering, so people assume that you are like trying to pursue data career just because, I don't know, like you can find something else, and as soon as you can find like your traditional path, you are going to leave the industry, you are going to leave your job to move back to your previous career. So it was hard to like prove that I was serious in this new career. That was my something different. Yeah.
You are not the only one who has experienced that, for sure.
Yeah.
One of the aspects that I heard, especially from Bernie, was related to the education and the kind of programs that you might have taken in order to get there. Which brings me to the next question, which is, has any educational program in analytics, machine learning, or AI contributed to your success here in Canada? And I just would like to start with Benjamin.
Oh, yeah, sure. Actually, as some of you already know, I just completed a master in management of artificial intelligence back at Queen's University, which is a great program, by the way. The way I see it, it's already helping me. And there are two main reasons I took the program, which I think may apply to some of you guys as well. So first is the technical know-how. I have been on the field for a while, but there are so many new developments over the last 10 years, I'd say, that it's hard to catch up on your own. And especially if you're here in Canada, because Canada is one of the hubs in AI and analytics. So that's definitely helpful on the content side. And the other side is on the networking, like getting a stronger network in Canada, a more diverse network. I had some network, but was more around the social bank and banking. I wanted to broaden that, and on those two things, the master has been really helpful for me.
Thank you. What about Jeanette? Like, is there any specific program that, or anything that you might have taken from an educational standpoint to get there where you are?
Yeah. So my network administration program from back home, it's a diploma. So a few years ago, I enrolled in a data science fundamental certificate, a PFT, which goes in hand with my previous education. And I think it did really help in my success here in Canada. And I did, even though I was already in the industry and I was doing data analysis, it wasn't in-depth data analysis that you were taught at school. So I had the opportunity to work with real data sets and open data sources and do more in-depth analysis, create machine learning models, data pipeline, etc. So I think having that on your resume and having like a good skill set or a good stack on like the languages, platforms, and tools helped me stand out, I think.
Absolutely. And Natalie, what are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, well, I love education, like in so many ways. So in my case, I did an MBA, but I also, after I had the job, I said I need more, like more hands-on. So I did like the certificate and also U of T, and I take a lot of like continuing education courses. And I think education in general helps you in so many ways. As Benjamin said, it gives you a network and it gives you like condensed information. But also the more diverse courses you take, online, whatever it is, or I also go to the events, and I think this is also part of education. it will give you a broader view of what, of how this tool could be actually used. Because I think at the end of the day, I agree with Bernie that you just have to have very clear what the purpose is, right? Because technology will come, and go, but you have to be very clear. So that's my view.
Definitely. Like this field is so vast, and there are so many things to learn. You have to prioritize what you need to gather, to get in order to go where you want to go. Before I go to the next question, Bernie, do you have any comments that you would like to include to add to this conversation?
Yeah, like for example, in my case, I finished a master's in data science and analytics at Ryerson University. I started there doing a mini certificate with them, and then I heard they were just about to start the master's program, so I basically transitioned into that program. That I think it helped me from the perspective that gave me the confidence to stand up to people and explain things, because now I've dove very, very deep into like models and the details on how they understand and the mathematical background behind them. So I understand the details. So it's like, okay, now I know what clustering is. I know what NLP means, right? So I know all these things, and that helps me from that perspective. I think that was the main value that I took from there. It's like, I'm a very analytical, so it's just like opening the box and it's like, okay, is this, but it's not that. That was the main value that I took from there. I think also it helped me a little bit on my career. Where I come from, most of the work that we do in my consulting company is more on what we call data engineering, right? So it's basically setting up the pipelines for the data comes from the systems, whatever that is, right? Like the invoice system, point of sale systems, right? Transforming them and letting them ready for other people to do the analytics, right? So in my particular position, it helped me just to bridge that gap and say, okay, after the data is ready, I can take more value out of that. So those are the two things that I extracted from my program. I think was valuable for me.
Yes, definitely. And there's this aspect of mathematics and statistics probability that at some point we will need to get some exposure, which is extremely relevant too. In addition to, like the preparation that we've had from a technical standpoint, we might have also got some, gotten some support from a community or a group of friends of people that we might know in order to get where we are right now. So my next question will go to Jimena, and it will be like at some point of your time in Canada, did you get any support from a community of professionals in this specific field that help you pursue your goals?
Yes, definitely, and I'm very thankful for that. I did so I was part of the Society of Women Engineers here in Canada for some time, so that was great. And then also I attend some meetups and meetings from women in data science and women who code. So it was great to understand like the market and to understand. I usually ask them like, what I do next, what I should learn, how to improve my resume, or things like that. And also I got help from TRIEC. That's not like a network, it's more like a employment services here from the government. And they have a mentorship program for professionals. And I had like a mentor, and she was amazing. She gave me so much support, and yeah, I'm very thankful for all of that people.
Fantastic. Joseph, do you have any thoughts for this question?
In my case, I have always been inclined to try to explore kind of new endeavors, like new startup style. So the startup ecosystem in Toronto is very rich, and there is a lot of resources for that. Every university has some sort of accelerators or incubators. So I did an entrepreneurship course with JEDI, which is the accelerator from York University. And Mars, of course, have the Entrepreneurship 101 that is free every Wednesday sessions. And they provide a lot of resources for people that is just interested in starting their own business, from legal advice to how to manage like intellectual property. So yeah, I think I exploited that a lot when I first came here.
Yeah, that's an important aspect to consider, the support that you might have from a community. And Canada, it's like quite fascinating from that perspective. They provide so many resources that you can take into consideration. And these are just some of a few examples of what you can explore. Probably I would like to understand a bit more about your own careers. Try to see anything that you feel extremely proud of in the area of analytics. And I would like to start with Benjamin. I would like to know from you, like, if there's anything in your career in analytics that you feel extremely proud of that you would like to share with us.
Yeah, sure. Okay, how to put it? I think probably if I have to talk about analytics specifically, one of the things I feel really proud is when I got my first role in analytics here at Scotiabank at Canadian Banking. So it was my first time working in Canada and in analytics. I have experience from Peru, of course, but you always have a difference in our market. And I have to assemble a team from zero, so get to know the market, get to know the people, do the recruiting. I was used to do the recruiting, like, by a lot of network, personal contacts. It was easy for me in Peru because I know pretty much everybody, right? But here it was the other way. So that was quite a challenge, and I was able to put together a pretty solid team. Then I had to move from that position because of other reasons. But that team is doing pretty well. So that was something pretty satisfying for me. So being able to put together a team, deliver some good results, and then see the people keep growing in the bank.
Interesting. Yeah, it's when you work with people that you can see the actual impact of your actions at this point. Probably just because I want to bug you, Joseph, you might want to say something there.
Thank you. In my case, I feel very proud with most of the projects that I have been able to put out there in the hands of real customers. We are making the life of and I work on the B2B space. So as I said, I work more with small business, commercial customers or large corporations. And I have been doing things like creating e-commerce portals, ecosystems for them. So when they can sell their products online and facilitate payments for them, that's huge. When we are, I don't know, changing processes, onboarding, especially now during COVID, we are really trying to eliminate all the paper, any manual instructions. So that's also a good way to protect them from coming to the branch and moving documents across the city. So that's basically what makes me proud and really what drives me to keep working on what I do.
That's fantastic, Joseph. Maybe one of the ladies might want to share any experience that make you feel proud from like this analytics, AI, machine learning perspective.
I think just to second on what Joseph was saying is that really the work that we do has a direct impact on either other teams, clients, internal stakeholders. So it feels really rewarding when you work on something that is helping your company as a whole, is helping one of your peers, or helping an internal company save time or make those data-driven decisions that have a positive impact overall. So yeah, I think that's my take on the work that we do. It's actually really important in the scheme of things, or when you're looking at the big picture.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. We have 3 more questions before we go to the audience. So let me just go to the next one. What do you see as the most exciting opportunities in the field of data science, machine learning, AI, or analytics in the future? What are your thoughts on it? And I would like to start with Natalie.
Yeah, so I would say as a citizen, like in the business, I would say thinking about what the changes could be in the health industry, that's pretty exciting, right? Like about how we could make sure that the diagnosis of these kind of things are more reliable and fast. This is quite interesting. And in general, like one area that I'm fascinated is customer analytics. I'm just in love with the whole concept. And I actually think it should not be called customer analytics. I think it should be called like user analytics or something, because it's about behavior, right? So that could actually help not only companies, but governments and different institutions. So that's my take.
Yes, absolutely. As a citizen, it's good to keep that in mind, especially coming from that specific background. It lets you understand all those complexities. Let's go with Benjamin.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, sorry, could you, I kind of lost the track. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sure. Any specific like opportunities, exciting opportunities that you see in the field of AI analytics that you think are relevant and you would like to share with us?
Oh yeah, sure. Many things. I think I'd say probably two. First, Toronto, Canada, as many of us have already said, I think, is becoming a global hub of tech talent. So all the startups, technology companies are either opening new offices in here or just getting more people on their existing ones. Just as an example, Amazon and Google just have announced that they will open. Amazon sets, I think, more than 3,000 jobs in Canada. I bet a good number of them will be in analytics. Google came up with even a larger number. So I think in terms of immediate opportunities, technology will be a great field. Of course, there are suspects like banks, telecoms. I think those are the sectors I see. And in terms of what's of new stuff, I say probably for me, all the text analytics, NLP is pretty interesting. It's a new data source, and new data source usually means a lot of impact and new use cases. So I think that's going to be pretty intense in all industries as well.
That's absolutely interesting, and so many things to come. Maybe Jimena, is there anything that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. So from my experience and the things I'm seeing right now from the consulting perspective, I'm seeing the cloud, like having knowledge of cloud technologies, it's super valuable. Then also low code platforms. So I'm seeing that, and I also work in the past, I've been working in Scotiabank. So the thing I see in several finance companies is that this is a problem with how we are getting data. How we have, for example, they have an Excel with a macro and then another macro on top, and like, so this need from like to try to engage business people to build like simple applications to get data, and then to have the like a mini database to build analytics. So you have all in one. So instead of having like an Excel with a macro and someone adds something and then create a table and then you can use like a low code platform to be like a small app that requests data from the user and then build some visualization. So I'm seeing that as a like a future, and also cloud, definitely cloud.
Yeah, cloud is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Bernie, also from a consulting perspective, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think one of the things that actually excited me in the last couple of months is something that's called GPT-3. I don't know if you've seen that. It's basically a new data model put out by a company, a new, NLP model put out by a company called OpenAI, funded by, I think Elon Musk at the beginning, but it's like, it's just like, it blew my mind. So if you Google GPT-3 and just check the videos on YouTube, you'll understand what I mean. It's basically a model that can basically create stories from scratch, answer questions to you, write code. And that was like, oh my God, so this is also going to take all of our jobs now. So it's just freaking believable. That I would say is one thing that is like incredible. And I agree in terms of with like Canada being kind of like a hotspot for our talent. We're seeing more and more companies fighting for this kind of talent, it's really difficult to find good people, and we're all after all of them in this market right now. So I think in time we'll start to see more and more of the automation of these things and extracting value for data. But it will become easier just to implement these things in time. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing. There's going to be kind of like a fragmentation. It's going to be like careers that are like very, very specialized in, you know, the AI, machine learning, data science, very, very high skill mathematical, and others that are going to be more towards kind of like human science and how to apply this, how to extract this, how to implement these things in the real world.
Yes, definitely. That GPT-3, it's unbelievable. And just for the audience, that's basically something called natural language processing, which is a field of AI that it's extremely interesting. It can do wonders, and you will be able to see that by the time you check that on Google. Now we have going to the A question here. What kind of advice would you give to the audience when they want to pursue this field of analytics or machine learning and AI? And for this question, I would like to start with Joseph.
I think I want to go back to a theme that we talked at the beginning of this panel. No, to me, the mission and the problem is more important than the tool. So if you want to learn and spend time of it, but also think about what is the problem that you want to solve. You want to go to medicine, and okay, go to medicine. There is a ton of applications for machine learning and AI there. You want to go to banking, only in banking, we have from fraud detection to capital markets, to marketing, behavior, to propensity models, you name it. So it's super vast, but focus on that. What is the problem? What do I want to contribute to society with the help of this particular set of tools?
Yes, that's a great advice that people should keep in mind. Be very focused on what you want to do with this tool. Janet, would you like to share anything with us?
Definitely. Actually, I want to touch up on your previous question on what's exciting and coming up. I personally think that AI ethics is going to become really huge in the next few years, especially as we continue to make advancements in areas that have direct impact on humans. So I'm really looking forward to see what's coming up in that specific area. Now, to answer this question around advice, I think networking is key, and that means within your network or outside your network, but networking is really key. And I think right now it's easier that everything is virtual. It's much more easier to connect with people, whether it is via conferences or on LinkedIn, but it's really important to make those connections locally. The other thing that I know on this call, there are a lot of people from Hispanic background. Something that I've noticed is that a lot of people try to hide their background in terms of hiding where they had their education or where their previous work were. And I think you should embrace your differences, and you should embrace where you're coming from. And that makes you unique, and that actually makes you stand out when you're applying for different jobs. But that's just my opinion. So I think embrace it, don't hide it, just throw it out there that, and at the end of the day, we're all trying to make really diverse teams in the workplace. So if you're trying to hide that, it's kind of counterproductive. What else? I think just keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up. That's all.
Perfect, thank you. Let's go with Benjamin.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think my main recommendation will be to have a plan, and by that I mean the field is pretty broad, as somebody already said. You have many roles like data, and here the market is very specialized. So you have roles in data, roles in model, roles more in the automation side, the ops. Some people have even these translator roles. So there are plenty of roles, and they have different competences and different requirements. So if you are entering the field, it's pretty important to get to understand well the roles, get to know what you like, what you want to do, and then how you fit on what's required for those roles. And if you're missing something, find a way to try to overcome that opportunity. And if you have some strengths, that's an opportunity also to highlight that when you are looking for a job. So
Absolutely.
this is so the market is growing. We are looking for people all the time, but at the same time, it's pretty competitive, right? And it's very specialized. So it's feasible to find a good job, but you really have, I like to call it, have a plan, like, you know, get to know what you want, what you are missing, and then figure out a way to get there.
Perfect. Before I go to my last question, I would like to leave it like at the very, very end. I've been checking the questions that are already in the chat box. And it's kind of like a follow-up question from this one, more related to a person who has recently graduated, right? Like from business analytics. And this person wants to know, like, without any specific experience, what are the kinds of things that this person can start doing by now in order to, you know, get into the industry by just like having zero experience and just graduated from a programming and analytics? What are what is your advice? Is there anybody who would like to share?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have an advice. So I think that even we say that the tools are not important. That's true. But if you are in entry level, the tools are the things that get you the job. That's so, and it's hard to demonstrate that you have a certain skill. So in my case, for example, certifications really help me. So for example, if you're trying to say, okay, I know how to use SQL, for example, SQL. Okay, get the certification and something like with a SQL. Like, or I know how to use this Tableau, for example. So get the certification from Tableau. Or I know Databricks, get the certification from Databricks. It's going to help you to demonstrate that you have the skill that you say you have. That's why for an entry level role.
Yeah, Natalie, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Jimena is saying for, you know, for like an entry-level position, this is one, but I also think this, to find a job, I personally hate it. So I had to, you know, after a little bit of failure, I said I have to fall in love with the process. So at least, for example, the networking in Latin America, it's we don't have that, I think, right? So one of the things that I think it's because for me, at the beginning, it was an artificial thing. So everyone would say, you have to do it. And then I will go and I'm like, what is this? So basically what I did is I did my own way of networking. I said, I'm gonna go whatever I want. I believe in cooperation. So what I'll do is I'll reach out to people to talk about what they did. And actually it's funny because Jimena is here and Jimena was one of the key person who when I talked to her, I'm like, this is doable. So it was you know, it was a phenomenal, and it was just a conversation, right? Because she had a similar background. This is one. The other one is after you have a certification, be strategic. This is not only a science, this is an art. So for example, one of the things you could do to find a job is reach out directly to people with HR, you know, from HR from different companies. And it's like, I'm here, you know, and they're gonna help you in the process. Okay, maybe it's not give me a job, that's maybe not the case, but it's like, okay, is there anything that's, as also Jimena is saying, what do I need? So you have time to improve that. And the final thing I would say, get to know yourself, what you like, and the job market. Because that's when you say, you have to be strategic with that. You say, okay, I'm going there. And this is way easier than trying to, you know, to look around without a defined goal.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to answer, or should I just go to the next question? Is there anything else?
I have one more thing.
Let's go Benjamin first, and then Jeanette. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, just a quick advice also, don't assume that a straight line is the only way, you know, because sometimes you can do the lateral move. You're looking for something and you find a close position, or you want to get into a specific analytics role, but then you find one role close enough in the organization. So just go for that, because you know, organizations change all the time. There are, you know, people move. It's important that you get inside the circle, and then you have a chance to know the people, and the people have a chance to know you. So I think that's important also to have a clear goal, but also be flexible, I'd say.
Absolutely. Janet?
Yeah, just one more thing to add is my advice would be to build out a portfolio. It'll give you a platform to showcase the work that you can do. That's all.
Great. There's another question that, you know, like what is the adoption in AI and machine learning in other industries other than banking? Because, you know, like that's probably the most common one, especially I've noticed in the Hispanic community, that's quite a common one. So probably, let's say pharma, that's what the person is asking. So, or any other industry that you might want to mention. So is there anybody who would like to take this question?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. I think from consulting, yeah, we see this and like in many industries, right? We work definitely, well, with banking here in Toronto, definitely it's the financial services, one of the main industries, right? But for example, I work on retail projects. For example, a chain similar to LCBO, but like privately owned back in the US, similar approach. Okay, we want to understand our clients, we want to see like same person that bought something with this credit card is the same person that is using this points card. And it's also the same person that bought online, but also bought the same type of wine on a retail store, right? Similar thing, for example, with other type of retailers, manufacturing, right? So I would say like every single industry, everybody has data, right? So everybody turn their business into something that is on a data system. That can be like an Excel spreadsheet, a customer relationships management, like Salesforce, right? Everybody's turning their business operations into something that it's bits and bytes, right? The next logical thing is just to try to squeeze that as much as possible and just take value out of that. And I think that's the main key. So also going a little bit back to one of the questions that you were asking earlier, I think there's one of the very big gaps and opportunities for many people in this industry is actually being the bridge in between the technical and the business value. This is something that for some reason these unicorns never show up, but it's that key person that can use data to solve a business problem. Use data, how to frame a business problem with data. Everybody has these tables, these Excel spreadsheets, as Jimena was saying, right? Everybody has tables and whatnot, but how do you use that to solve a business problem, to turn it into business value, right? So how to frame that into a business problem, how we use data to tell a story. This is like what I hear many, many times from our customers. Like, how can I use data to tell a story? The data needs to tell me a story about like, oh yeah, is this person comes here and like majority of people come there. That's like more going back to, I think it was Natalie who was saying like, this is more like an art than a science. So being that artist that can tell that story with data, that's like a big opening that many people, you don't have to have those many technical skills, right? Like you can do that with SQL, you can do that with Tableau, you can do that with Power BI, dragging and dropping data. It's more just like that spark and like how, okay, I want to double click on this and like this makes sense. Just try to follow hypothesis behind the data and just laying it out for business people to understand what's behind.
Perfect. I see another question that probably this is very, very specific. This person is an engineer in Chile. This person has worked in business intelligence and has worked has a diploma in big data. Right now, she's asking, what public college would you recommend to start a career in Canada? So probably this person got this education back home. That's my assumption. And probably this person wants to grow here. So is there any, I mean, probably you might not come with a specific name for college, but is there any specific programs that you might want to suggest? Yeah, go ahead.
So I would actually kind of challenge the question. I would say, why would you need that? I guess maybe that's the first thing, because sometimes I think we might take, and especially because I think we have a background sometime in Latin America, some countries that we have to study a lot. So I mean, it's always, I'm not saying don't do it, but sometimes if the end goal is just to find a job, I think certifications are more, you know, boot camps or these kind of things are maybe a short path. So just kind of see what's the end goal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll also say with that computer engineering background, I think just like probably bridging the gap through big data, or I'm just thinking Python, SQL, Spark, right? All this like technology tools. That's probably your first foot in the door. Just going through that technology path, figuring out like what's the tool in vogue, like Databricks, right? Like get a certification in Databricks. I'm pretty sure like most of these technology companies now just make all this training material free, because it works to their advantage of actually selling more products and getting more people certified and stamped by their brands. So like I think that's also like a good first foot in the door.
Perfect. I'm going to make this question a bit more general from what I see here. It would be more like from the technical standpoint. What are the kind of technical tools, like program software that you use on a regular basis, or anything that you might suggest that this person should learn or should have in his or her portfolio?
So here,
yeah.
Things I'm seeing, it's SQL. It's old, but everyone uses it. So SQL. Then some type of BI tool. So can be Tableau, Power BI, Looker, whatever. Then I would say some programming language. Usually it's R or Python. But if you want to do like more like a data engineering thing, it's more like Databricks and like Spark, and also cloud. Like try to learn some, for example, Amazon Web Services or Azure, to have at least a knowledge, a broad knowledge about cloud technologies. It's important, in my opinion.
Perfect. There's one that it's related more to the government, like if there's any technologies that are being used, probably from AI or analytics in the government, municipalities or something like that. I don't know if probably, Bernie, you might have seen any use case for governments that you might want to share with us.
Yeah, actually I work in a project, but this is more than probably 6 years ago, with York Region Municipality and with their transport office. And they were basically capturing all the data from the buses, right? So they have basically IoT devices in every single bus. So they basically count how many people get in, how many people get out in every single stop. So what we did is we put together way back when was like business intelligence, and with analysis services cubes. We collected all that data and also the GPS to know how long it used to take the bus to go from one stop to another. And we use all that just to try to understand how many people are getting in and out of the bus at every single stop. And then try to see if, like, for example, it makes sense for them to move the stops during winter, because like not many people were there, and just trying to optimize their routes. That was one of the main ones that I've seen, and I was like, okay, this is pretty advanced for like this municipality a little bit up north of Toronto, right? Everything else that I've seen in government, and also to be honest, like across the industry, it feels like pretty much everybody's very much behind, other than the banks, where they have like budgets to explore and invest in this. Everybody's behind. Everybody knows they're behind. Everybody's trying to get ahead and just like spend as much as they can, just trying to take advantage of the data that they have. We were working with a couple of government offices in Ottawa, and yeah, I noticed that. And it's not only here in Canada, it's also in the US. Like everything that's government, it's always a little bit behind. They need to also work with other things. They need to work with aspects like regulations around the data. For example, we're talking about cloud, right? There's all this thing about what's called data residency. For example, in the US, the US government basically has it's allowed to just basically go into every cloud and just like sniff into your data. They just can't do that. So the Canadian government or any Canadian like institution cannot allow that to happen, right? So you need to have data centers here in Canada or in Europe as a backup, right? So there's like this whole other aspect of regulatory aspects around data and this kind of things that also sometimes don't let the governments being able to catch up or be at the forefront of where technology is going right now, which is cloud.
Perfect. Next question. Do you have to know how to use automation tools in order to work in the data analytics industry, or are they separate jobs that you can actually work on? Does anybody want to answer this question?
So I'm not sure what they mean exactly with automation tools, because I think all of us that are working with data integrations, that's automation in itself. So you're bringing data sources together in one place. And if you have a live integration, you're getting data feeds by the hour, by the day, or whatever the near to real time data is in your business. But I personally do automation in the work that I do, but it comes not in the way of tools, more of like in the way of how we integrate the data sources and how we make sure we're processing all of that data within the hour, the days, and making sure the output data sets are updated and available for everybody. So I'm not sure if that helps with this.
Yeah,
I
can take that on. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Joseph.
No, I'm still a little bit confused also about the question, but basically, we at the bank use some automation tools, but mostly for back office services. So we use some bots to try to precisely in all this process of automating or moving away for documentation and paper. So that's how we are using automation tools. In my case, I don't know, Benjamin, if you have another use case.
Yeah, I think what I have seen is so usually the person doing the model or developing the model or the machine learning model in general is not the same person that deploys into production. Because here in developing, you're working with Python or something like that. And then when you deploy into production, you need to interact with the actual IT system of the bank. Right? And you have which are all over the place. But usually you have other procedures in there, and there is lots of automation going on in there. So there are some roles who specialize on that. Is the question. So sometimes you can be just on this side and not knowing much of this. In my opinion, it's always useful, even though it's not a specialization, it's always useful to know a bit of each of the other parts of the change. That makes you, I think, more efficient. Yeah, but that we may take on that one.
Yeah. Any other insights for this question, or we can just go ahead and go for the next question?
There's also like this whole other aspect of the concept of like ops, right? And automating everything, right? So it's like something that's very much in vogue right now is like data ops. Like it comes from like what's DevOps, right? So it's the automation of everything that's related to the development, software engineer. Right? But the same concept can be applied to other things, like for example, data ops. So it's how we automate the data pipeline, how we automate the process of deploying data pipelines. There's also a similar concept, for example, called ML ops. How do you automate the deployment of the machine learning models, right? So like I think the industry, especially the IT industry, is going towards this model of like automate everything that can be automatable. A couple of years ago, there was not much, like everybody's thinking more about cost, like automated will cost us much, like a little bit more, but like we don't want to go in there. Now everybody's thinking, okay, if I invest, I don't know, 20, 50, whatever % more in my project and I can get it automated, that just like basically simplifies everything for the next couple of years, right? So it's very much a thing, but that just, it's pervasive. It goes like I think Jeanette was saying, like it's just like across everything that can be automated will be automated. So it's just like anything that you think, it's just it's very much out there.
Yeah. Probably I'm going to develop this question a bit in terms of, Bernie, you have mentioned at one point that there's this need for someone who can bridge the gap between the technical and, you know, like the business need, the business use case. One of the people in the audience was asking if this is related to an actual business analyst, or is there any specific role that would meet that need? So, or is there anything else that should be considered?
Yeah, like I don't know much about the name, but if you have that skill, you're the key person in that team. That's what I can tell you. Like, for example, we deployed and we developed projects for, like, I don't know, hundreds of companies, and everybody struggles with that. And many of them is like, okay, we have all this platform. Okay, what do we do with this, right? So they come to the end of just like, okay, we have this whole magic platform in the cloud, and all the data gets sucked up into my system, transform, and then, okay, and what do I do next, right? So having that person that can get the technical questions, especially from executives that might have a hint or might have a hypothesis, and just how can you translate this in something that is actionable and explainable? It can be a business analyst, right? But it's a role that is very much needed, not only in the kind of the business analysis team, right? You need to have that concept of having those people in many teams. They have to be in business teams, they have to be in marketing teams, they have to be in HR teams, right? So if you, whatever kind of field you are, if you have that skill that you can turn the data from your specific area, being that, again, marketing, commercial, sales, whatever that is, right? And turn that into using that data to solve a business need or business problem or automate something. That I think is the key skill. It's like turning into something that can bring value, but like now, not something that it can, I don't know, take weeks or months to deploy something. Maybe it's just a dashboard. Maybe it's just like a simple visualization that you get automated or just email your team, right? That, I think it gives you the advantage. Sometimes it's like, it's more than the skill, than the role that you're playing in a team.
Yeah.
And also I want to add something, that you need to be able to communicate effectively the things that you find, your insights, whatever. Sometimes if you're a technical person, it's hard to understand how to communicate insights, how to communicate change, how to, yeah, that's, and also you need to learn PowerPoint. So like everyone, everywhere is like, oh my God, but it's key. You need to learn to use the tool, but to communicate something. The key, the insight that you get from the data, you need to, that's my input.
Yes.
Some last point of myself on that. Some people call that role the translator, which essentially is intended to mean, okay, this is the person bridging the quote-unquote business side and the technical side. Yeah, I think I see why large organizations need that, but I keep with what Jimena was saying, which is so a critical tool, a critical skill that not everybody develops is the communication. So being able to work with technical and non-technical people, define well the problem, define how you're going to solve it, and then communicate what's the solution, what are the next steps, all those things, all those skills. That's very powerful. If you are able to learn that and work on that, whatever side you are, data, technical, modeling, that's going to be very, very helpful for you in general.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a very, very important aspect for everybody to keep in mind. If you are unable to communicate, that's going to be a huge, huge issue in the future, especially since you want to advance in your career. That's going to be one of the key things that you need to keep in mind. Another question here is that, how do you perceive the proportion between women and men in the area? Is it small? What are your thoughts about it? Anybody want to take this one?
It's bad. That's my, usually you are the only woman in like a 10 people team. usually. Or you're the only one that it's technical. You have, I'm seeing like some project manager, for example, they are like women, but it's not like it's all men. And also I found in my experience it's hard. You need to be clear what do you want to do with your career, because the market and they try to push you to this like project management or business analyst or this kind of not so technical roles, because I know if it's in a bias or if because you can communicate or because it's very nice, I don't know, but it happens. So yeah, that's my input.
Yeah.
It's the bias. Sorry.
Yes.
But we will change that. We will change that. We're changing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually banks, I think they're doing better than their counterparts in other industries.
We're trying. We're trying.
Yeah, totally. It's different. I'm working in consulting, and before I was working at Scotiabank also, but now it's consulting. I'm usually the only one that it's woman, and the only one that's Latina, of course.
Yeah, that's interesting. One last question from the audience, and this is more about like probably the beauty of AI and the different use cases that are now out there and like are very, very recent that you might want to share. There's so many things that we could see from news to actual science fiction movies and so on. But at this point, what are the fascinating aspects that AI can bring to the business and the world in general that you would like to share?
Okay, I can give it a try. I am a believer that AI is going to be everywhere. It's going to be omnipresent. It's a matter of when. Yeah, it's going to be on every aspect of our lives, and hopefully enhancing the experience of ourselves as human beings. So I really think that this is just the beginning, the tipping point of a very powerful tool that will be involved in our day-to-day lives. In most of the cases, it's already there.
Yes. Is there anybody else who would like to share anything before we go to the last question?
Yeah, I have some. I'm kind of. I think that we need to be in data, but because someone needs to understand and control also, because I think it's so powerful, but can be used for the wrong things also. It's like so much information about people, so you can modify the perceptions of people about certain topics, certain things that are important. So the things we're seeing in the world and the news, for example, and how you can manipulate the perception of someone about certain topics. And I think that's another reason I like to be, I want to be in data, because I want to be part of this to understand and not like leave it, because it's going to be like a fundamental part of our lives in the future. So
yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say something related to healthcare. I have been following one use case I have been pretty excited about. Is recently somebody came up with a neural network to identify COVID from X-rays. You know, if you think about it, it's pretty fascinating because COVID is new, right? So the data, it has not even a year, and the data is already in there, and some people have been able to put together a pretty sophisticated model to automate something that was pretty hard for humans to do some months ago. Of course, there are a lot of caveats in there, but I guess my point is there are a lot of exciting use cases going around, different fields, different impact, but just the speed at which the field is moving is pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we finish, one last question. I would like just everybody from the speakers that you can share that like maybe 30 seconds. The last question is basically some final words. What is the importance of diversity in this field? You know, like we're Hispanics, we're getting into this area. Why is this important, especially in the area of analytics, AI, data science? And I would like to start with Natalie.
So I think if you are part of this, you're sitting at the table. So I think you have the opportunity to create better products and services that actually reflect, you know, your background, your experience, and what you've seen. I think I am very, I think it's a great opportunity. Like it's amazing that I had this experience from a Latin country, which is, you know, the reality from here to our countries is very different. So I think this is for sure, I will bring value to any team I am because I have that experience.
Bernie?
I think diversity is everything. Like from my experience here in Canada, is the stronger, the more diverse a team is, the stronger it is, right? Different points of views that definitely affect, for example, things like how you analyze things, how you view them from your background, from your learning experience, from wherever the country you come from, right? So the more people of color, gender diversity, LGBTQ, like countries and cultures we can bring into a team, the stronger it gets, especially when you're thinking about analyzing things. Analyzing is just like looking at one fact from different angles, right? So the more reach that group of people that are looking at the same problem you can get, the more value you'll be able to extract, right? So that's kind of what I see. It's so valuable.
Yes, absolutely. Benjamin?
Yes, so totally agree with what has been said. I like to add that when you have diverse teams, meaning people with different backgrounds, different ethnicities, gender, etc., you get two things. You get different angles to the problem. That's pretty important. That's what Bernie was saying. And the other point is, once you have the solution, you have a pretty different group of people looking for what will be the consequences. A lot of the problems that we have heard about AI analytics in general has been about unintended consequences. Many of these things were not designed for that. People just didn't see the problem beforehand. And one of the reasons was because the teams were not diverse enough, right? So having diverse teams will definitely help you to lower that risk. I think it's very important.
Great point. Jeanette?
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. I think diversity is really, really important when it comes to what everybody was saying, but Bernie was mentioning on analyzing data. And even when it comes to ML and AI, at the end of the day, humans are interpreting the results of a model. So it's really important that the team of people that are doing that analysis or that interpretation is diverse. The other thing I like to touch up on something that Benjamin mentioned, and is that if you're building an ML solution or an ML AI solution or application, you need to think of who is going to be using that product and try to have that audience represented during the whole process when it comes to requirement gathering, the development of the model to the look and feel of the actual end product. It's really important because I've seen some cases in where you have a product that is just for women, but there were no women involved in the process at all. So then if you're the person using the product, you realize that it's not really fitting in because nobody really thought of how you would use it, because nobody there had that perspective that only women would have.
Yes, thank you. Joseph?
I don't have much to add. Same topic. I think diversity makes us stronger, and that's a fact, and also protect us from the unconscious bias or the bias of the data that we have, because that's the other issue. In a lot of cases, the data that we use is already biased because the society is biased. So when we have this diverse team, we can really pick on those biases and do something around that, and that's key. That's a key lesson from anyone who is jumping into this field.
Last but not least, Jimena.
I think I don't have that much to add. I think that everyone said like all, but yeah, and also I like to maybe touch up in the being bilingual and trying to not hide our background. That's important. To be proud of the thing we have done and the thing we are and our culture, and try to embrace them instead of hide them. That's all.
Important aspect to keep in mind. Well, this has been amazing. Natalie, Jimena, Jeanette, Bernardo, Joseph, and Benjamin, I really want to thank you for your time and for sharing your experience and insights with this audience and with me. I would also like to thank the Hispanotech team. They are a phenomenal group of people that I was able to work with. So Diana, Laura, Carla, thank you so much for organizing this event. And finally, I would like to thank you, the audience, for attending and showing so much interest in this initiative. Basically, this was a celebration of success stories in this fascinating field, and it couldn't be possible without you. And this is an opportunity for you to explore and consider data analytics, data science, and AI, see how interesting and amazing the different paths you can explore. And yeah, this is the end of our event. Please make sure that you have completed that survey that has been sent, and just staying tuned. There are so many other events to come. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. It was a great experience to talk to you.